Molly, where are you?
Doing all the work, you brute.
Oh, there you are. Oh, leave it all for me. Shall I stoke the aga?
Done.
Hello, sweetheart. Your nose is cold.
Oh, well, I've just come in.
Why? Where have you been? Oh, surely you haven't been out in this weather.
I had to go down to the village for something I'd forgotten. Did you get the chicken netting?
Oh, it wasn't the right kind. I went on to another dump, but that wasn't any good either. Practically the whole day wasted. Oh my God, practically half frozen. Although the car was skidding like anything. The roads are all banked up. But you bet we're not snowed up by tomorrow.
Oh dear, I hope not. If only the pipes don't freeze.
We'll have to keep the central heating well stoked up. Too good. Oh, I do wish they'd send the Coke along. We've not got any too much.
I do so want everything to go well at first. First impressions are so important.
Is everything ready? No one's arrived yet, I suppose.
No, thank goodness. I think everything's in order. Mrs. Barlow hooked it early, afraid of the weather, I suppose.
What a nuisance these daily women are. It leaves everything on your shoulders.
And yours. This is a partnership.
So long as you don't ask me to cook.
Yeah, that's my department. Anyway, we've got lots of tins in case we're snowed up. Giles, do you think it's going to be all right?
Got cold feet, have you? Are you sorry now we didn't sell this place when your aunt left it to you instead of having this mad idea of running it as a guest house?
No, I'm not. I love it. But speaking of guest house, will you just look at that?
Pretty good, what?
It's a disaster, don't you see? You left out the S. Monkwell instead of Monkswell.
Good Lord, so I did. However did I come to do that? But it doesn't really matter, does it? Monkwell's just as good a name.
You're in disgrace. Go and stoke up the central heating.
Across that icy yard. Shall I bank it up for the night now?
No, you don't do that till 10 or 11 at night.
How appalling.
Well, hurry up, so they arrive at any minute now.
You got all the rooms worked out?
Yes. Mrs. Boyle, front four-poster room, Major Metcalf blue room, Miss Casewell east room, and Mr. Renly oak room.
I wonder what all these people will be like. Oughtn't we to have got rent in advance?
No, I don't think so.
We're rather mugs at this game.
They bring luggage. If they don't pay, we hang on to the luggage. It's quite simple.
I can't help thinking we ought to have taken a correspondence course in hotel keeping. Well, we're sure to get had in some way. Why, their luggage might just be bricks wrapped up in newspapers, and where would we be then?
Oh, they all wrote from very good addresses.
No, that's what servants with forged references do. Why, some of these people might be criminals hiding from the police.
Oh, well, I don't care what they are, as long as they pay us 7 guineas a week.
You're such a wonderful woman of business, Molly.
And according to Scotland Yard, the crime took place at 24 Culver Street, Paddington. The murdered woman was a Mrs. Maureen Klein. In connection with the murder, the police are anxious to interview a man seen in the vicinity, wearing a dark overcoat, light scarf, and a soft felt hat. Sword against eyes down the road. The heavy snow is expected.
How do you do?
Thanks so much. Oh, weather's simply awful. My taxi gave up at your gate. Wouldn't attempt the drive. No sporting instinct. Are you Mrs. Ralston? How delightful. My name's Red.
How do you do, Mr. Wren?
No, you're not at all as I pictured you. I've been thinking of you as a retired general's widow, Indian Army. I thought you'd be terrifically grim and memsahibbish. That the whole place would be simply crammed with Benares brass. Instead, it's heavenly, quite heavenly, lovely proportions. That's a fake. But this table is genuine. I'm simply going to love this place. Have you got any wax flowers or birds of paradise?
Oh, I'm afraid not.
Oh, what a pity. Well, what about a sideboard? A purple plummy mahogany sideboard with great solid carved fruits on it. Yes.
Yes, we have, in the dining room.
And there, I must see it. Absolutely perfect. Real bedrock respectability. But why do away with a center mahogany table? Little tables just spoil the effect.
Do come and warm yourself. We thought the guests would prefer them. This is my husband.
Oh, how do you do? Terrible weather, isn't it? Takes me back to Dickens and Scrooge and that irritating Tiny Tim. So bogus. Of course, Mrs. Ralston, you're absolutely right about the little tables. I was being carried away by my feeling for period. If you had a mahogany dining table, you'd have to have the right family round it. Stern, handsome father with a beard, prolific, faded mother, 11 children of assorted ages, a grim governess, and someone called Poor Harriet, a poor relation who acts as General Dog's body and is very, very grateful for being given a good home.
I'll take your suitcase up for you. Oak room, did you say?
Yes.
I do hope it's got a four-poster with little chintz roses.
It hasn't.
I don't believe your husband's going to like me. How long have you been married? Are you very much in love?
We've been married just a year. Perhaps you'd like to go up and see your room now.
Ticked off. I do so like knowing all about people. I mean, I think people are madly interesting, don't you?
I suppose some are, some are not.
No, I don't agree. They are all interesting. Because you never really know what anyone's like, or what they're really thinking. For instance, you don't know what I'm thinking about now, do you?
Not the least. Cigarettes?
No, thank you. You see, the only people who really know what other people are like are artists, and they don't know why they know it. But if they're portrait painters, it comes out on the canvas.
Are you a painter?
No, I'm an architect. My parents, baptized me Christopher in the hopes that I would be an architect. Christopher Wren. As good as halfway home. Actually, of course, everyone laughs about it, makes jokes about St. Paul's. However, who knows? I may yet have the last laugh. Chris Wren's prefabness may yet go down in history. I'm going to like it here. I find your wife most sympathetic.
Indeed.
And really very beautiful.
Oh, don't be absurd.
There. Isn't that like an Englishwoman? Compliments always embarrass them. European women take compliments as a matter of course. But English women have all the feminine spirit crushed out of them by their husbands. There's something very boorish about English husbands.
Do come up and see your room.
Shall I?
Could you set up the hot water boiler?
This is Maxwell Manor, I presume?
Yes.
I am Mrs. Boyle.
Oh, I'm Charles. Miles Ralston. Awful weather, isn't it? Is this your only luggage?
Major Metcalf is seeing to it.
I'll leave the door for him.
The taxi wouldn't risk coming up the drive. It stopped at the gate. We had to share a taxi from the station, and there was great difficulty in getting that. Nothing ordered to meet us, it seems.
Oh, I'm so sorry. We didn't know what train you'd be coming by, you see. Otherwise, of course, we'd have seen that someone was...
all trains should have been met.
Let me take your coat.
Thank you.
My wife will be down in a moment, so I'll just go along and give Metcalf a hand with the bags.
Well, the drive might at least have been cleared of snow. Oh, very offhand and casual, I must say.
Mrs. Boyle, I'm so sorry.
Mrs. Ross.
Yes.
You're very young. To be running this kind of an establishment, you can't have had very much experience.
Well, there has to be a beginning for everything, hasn't there?
I see. Quite inexperienced. An old house. I do hope you haven't got dry rot. Oh, a lot of people don't know they've got dry rot until it's too late to do anything about it.
Well, the house is in perfect condition.
Could use a coat of paint. Do you know that you've got worm in this oak?
This is my wife.
How do you do? Absolute blizzard outside. Thought at one time we shouldn't make it. Oh, I beg your pardon. If it keeps up like this, I should say you'll have 5 or 6 feet of snow by morning. Not seen anything like it since I was on leave in 1940.
I'll take these up. Which room did you say? Blue room and oak room?
No, I put Mr. Wren in the rose room. He liked the four-poster so much. So it's Mrs. Boyle in the oak room and Major Metcalf in the blue room.
Major?
Sir?
Do you have much servant difficulty here?
Oh, we have quite a good local woman who comes in from the village.
And what indoor staff?
No indoor staff, just us.
Indeed. I understood this was a guest house in full running order.
Only just starting.
I would have said that a proper staff of servants was essential before opening an establishment of this kind. I consider that your advertisement was most misleading. May I ask if I am the only guest with Major Metcalf, that is?
No, there's several others here.
Oh, and this weather, too. A blizzard, no less. Oh, very unfortunate.
We couldn't very well foresee the weather.
The north wind doth blow, and it will bring snow. And what will the robin do then, poor thing? I don't know, she rhymes, don't you? Most tragic and calm. That's what children like them.
May I introduce Mr. Wren, Mrs. Boyle?
How do you do?
This is a very beautiful house, don't you think so?
Oh, I have come to the time of life when I consider the amenities of an establishment to be more important than its appearance. If I had not believed this was a running concern, I should never have come. I understood it was fully equipped with every home comfort.
There is no obligation for you to remain here if you are not satisfied, Mrs. Boyle.
Oh dear, I certainly would not think of doing so.
If there has been any misapprehension, perhaps it would be better if you went elsewhere. I can ring up for the taxi to return. The roads are not yet blocked. We have had so many applications for rooms that we should be able to fill your place quite easily. At any rate, we are raising our terms next month.
I am certainly not going to leave before I have tried what the place is like. You needn't think you can turn me out now. Perhaps you would show me to my bedroom, Mrs. Ralston?
Certainly, Mrs. Boyle. Darling, you are wonderful.
I think that's a perfectly horrible woman. I don't like her at all. I'd love to see you turn her out in the snow. You serve her right.
It's a pleasure I've got to forgo, I'm afraid. Lord, there's another of them.
Great white car bogged down about half a mile down the road. Ran into a drift.
Let me take this. Any more stuff in the car?
No, I travel light. Glad to see you've got a good fire going.
Mr. Wren, Miss,
Casement.
my wife will be down in a moment.
No need to hurry. Got to get myself thawed out. Looks as if you're going to be snowed up here. Weather forecast said heavy falls expected. Mother was warned, etc. Hope you've got plenty of provisions in.
Oh, yes, my wife's an excellent manager. At any rate, we can always eat our hens.
Before we start eating each other, Ed.
Any news in the paper, apart from the weather?
Usual political crisis. Oh, yes. And rather juicy murder.
A murder? Oh, I like murder.
Police seem to think he was a homicidal maniac. Murdered a woman somewhere near Paddington. Sex maniac, I suppose.
Doesn't say much, does it? The police are anxious to interview a man in the vicinity of Culver Street at the time. Medium height, wearing darkish overcoat, lightish scarf, and soft felt hat. Police messages to this effect have been broadcast throughout the day.
Useful description. Fit pretty well anyone, wouldn't it?
When it says the police are anxious to interview someone, is that a polite way of hinting that he's the murderer?
Could be.
Who was the woman who was murdered?
Mrs. Lyon, Mrs. Maureen Lyon.
Young or old?
Doesn't say. Doesn't seem to have been robbery.
I told you. Sex maniac.
Oh, here's Miss Casewell, Molly. My wife.
How do you do?
It's an awful night. Would you like to come up to your room? The water's hot if you'd like a bath.
You're right, I would.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder where you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder where you are.
I must hurry out to the kitchen and get on with things. Mr. Metcalf's very nice. He won't be difficult. Mrs. Boyle really frightens me. We must have a nice dinner. I was thinking of opening 2 tins of minced cereal and beef, and mashed potatoes, and a tin of peas, and a stewed pigs and custard for later. Do you think it will be all right?
Oh, I should think so. Not very original, perhaps.
And will you bring them a long herring from the cellar for later?
Do let me help. I adore cooking. What about an omelette? You have got eggs, haven't you?
Oh yes, we've got plenty of eggs. We get lots of fowl. They don't lay as well as they should, but we put down a lot of eggs.
And if you've got a bottle of cheap any type wine, we might add it to the minced cereals and beef, did you say? Give it a continental flavor. Show me where the kitchen is and what you've got. And I dare say I shall have an inspiration.
Come on.
Bloody twit.
Isn't he sweet? He's put on an apron and he's getting all the things together. He says, leave it all to him and don't come up for half an hour. Well, if the guests want to do the cooking themselves, it will save us a lot of trouble.
Where on earth did you give him the best room?
I told you he liked a 4-poster.
He liked the bitty poster. Well,
Giles.
I've got no use for that kind. Well, you didn't handle his suitcase, I did.
Oh, that got bricks in it.
It had no weight at all. If you ask me, there was nothing in it. He's probably one of those young men who goes about bilking hotel keepers.
I don't believe it. I like him. But I think this case was rather unique, though, don't you?
Peculiar, if you ask me.
Seems very interesting that all our guests should either be odd or unpleasant. Anyway, I like Major Metcalf, don't you?
Probably drinks.
Oh, do you think so?
No, I don't. I was just feeling a bit depressed. Well, at any rate, we know the worst now. They've all arrived.
Who can that be?
Probably the Culver Street murderer.
Where am I?
This is Mousetrap Manor Guest House.
What stupendous good fortune. Madame. What an answer to prayer. A guest house. the charming hostess. My Rolls Royce Celeste has run into a snowdrift. Blinding snow everywhere. I do not know what I am. Perhaps I think to myself, I shall freeze to death. And I take the little bag, and I stagger through the snow. I see before me big iron gates, a habitation. I am saved. Twice I fall into the snow as I come up your drive, but at last I arrive, and immediately despair turns to joy. You can let me have a room, yes?
Oh,
Yes.
it's a rather small one, I'm afraid.
Naturally. Naturally, you have other guests.
We've only just opened this place as a guest house today, and so we're rather new at it.
Charming, charming.
What about your luggage?
That is of no consequence. I have locked the car securely.
But wouldn't it be better to get it in?
No. I can assure you on a night such as this, there'll be no thieves abroad. And as for me, my wants are very simple. I have all that I need here in this little bag. Yes, all that I need.
You better get thoroughly warm. I'll see about your room. It's rather cold, I'm afraid, because it faces north, but all the others are occupied.
You have several guests then.
There's Mrs. Boyle and Major Metcalf and Miss Casewell and a young man called Christopher Bryn, and now you.
Yes, the unexpected guest. The guest you did not invite. The guest who just arrived from nowhere, out of the storm. Sounds quite dramatic, does it not? Who am I? You do not know. Where do I come from? You do not know. Me? I am the man of mystery. But I tell you this, I complete the picture. From now on, there'll be no more arrivals, and no departures either. By tomorrow, perhaps even already, we are cut off from civilization. No butcher, no baker, no milkman, no postman, no daily papers, nobody and nothing but ourselves. That is admirable. Admirable. It could not suit me better. My name, by the way, is Arachine.
Oh, yes. Mrs. Ralston.
Mr. and Mrs. Ralston. And this is Monkswell Manor Guest House, you said. Good. Monkswell Manor Guest House. Perfect. Perfect.
Most dishonest not to have told me they were only just starting this place.
Well, everything's got to have a beginning, you know. Excellent breakfast this morning, good coffee, scrambled eggs, homemade marmalade. All nicely served, too. Little woman does it all herself.
Amateurs. There should be a proper staff.
Excellent lunch, too.
Corned beef.
But very well disguised corned beef. Red wine in it. Mrs. Ralston has promised to make a pie for us tonight.
And the radiators are not really hot. I shall speak about it.
Very comfortable beds, too. At least mine was. Hope yours was, too.
Oh, it was quite adequate. You know, I don't quite see why the best bedroom should have been given over to that very peculiar young man.
Got here ahead of us. First come, first served.
Well, from the advertisement I got, I got a much different picture of what this place would be like. A comfortable writing room, a much larger place altogether with bridge and other amenities.
Yes, regular old tabby's delight.
I beg your pardon?
I mean, yes, I quite see what you mean.
No, I shan't be staying here long.
No! No, I don't suppose you will.
Really, what a very peculiar young man. Unbalanced mentally, I shouldn't wonder.
Think he's escaped from a lunatic asylum.
I wouldn't be at all surprised.
Giles!
Yes.
Giles, could you shovel away the snow again from the back door?
I'll give you a hand, what? Good exercise. Must have exercise.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Really, what an incredible young woman. Doesn't she she know anything about housework? Carrying a carpet sweeper through the front hall. Aren't there any back stairs?
Oh, yes, very nice back stairs. Very convenient, if there was a fire.
But then why not use them? Anyway, all the housework should have been done in the morning, before lunch.
Well, I gather our hostess had to cook the lunch.
All very haphazard and amateurish. There should be a proper staff.
Not very easy to get nowadays, is it?
Oh, no. The lower classes seem to have no idea of their responsibilities.
Poor old lower classes. Got the bit between their teeth, haven't they?
I gather you are a socialist.
I wouldn't say that. I'm not a red. Just a pale pink. Anyway, I don't take much interest in politics. I've lived most of my life abroad.
Oh, well, I suppose conditions are much easier abroad.
Well, I don't have to cook and clean as I gather most people have to do in this country.
Oh, this country's gone sadly downhill. Not what it used to be. I sold my house last year. Everything was too difficult.
Hotels and guest houses are easier.
Well, they do solve some of one's problems. Are you over in England for long?
Depends. I've got some business to see to. And it's done, I shall go back.
Oh, to France?
No.
Italy?
No.
Oh. Oh, would you mind not playing that quite so loud? I always find the radio rather distracting when one is trying to write letters.
Do you?
Well, if you don't particularly want to
Oh,
listen...
but it's my favorite music. There's a writing table in there.
I know, but it's much warmer in here.
Much warmer, I agree.
Oh, really?
Bloody old bitch. Hello.
Wherever I go, that woman seems to hunt me down. And then she glares at me. Positively glares.
Turn it down a bit.
Is that all right?
Oh, yes. It's served its purpose.
What purpose?
Tactics forward.
Oh, it ain't her.
She pinched the best chair. I've got it now.
You drove her out? I'm glad. I'm very glad. I don't like her a bit. Let's think of things we can do to annoy her, shall we? Maybe we should go away from here.
This, not a coat.
But when the snow melts...
Oh, when the snow melts. Lots of things may have happened.
Yes. Yes, that's true. Snow is rather lovely, isn't it? So peaceful and pure. It makes one forget things.
It doesn't make me forget.
How fierce you sound.
I was thinking.
What sort of thinking?
Ice on a bedroom jug. Chilblains. Worn and bleeding. One thin ragged blanket. The child shivering with cold and fear.
My dear, it sounds too grim. What is it? A novel.
You didn't know I was a writer, did you?
Are you?
Sorry to disappoint you. Actually, I'm not.
Hello? Yes? Yes, this is Monkswell Manor Guest House. What? No, I'm afraid Mr. Ralston can't come to the telephone just now. This is Mrs. Ralston speaking. Who? The Berkshire Police? Oh, yes. Yes, Superintendent Holbein. Oh, I'm afraid that's without a license.
Press on, Major. I'll be with you shortly.
They're sending out a sergeant or inspector or something.
But he'll never get here.
That's what I said, but they seemed quite confident they would.
Nonsense. Why, even a jeep couldn't get through today. Anyway, what's it all about?
Well, that's what I asked, but it wouldn't say. Just said I was to impress upon my husband to listen very carefully to what Sergeant Trotter, I think it was, had to say and to follow his instructions implicitly. Isn't that extraordinary?
What on earth do you think we've done?
Do you think it's those nylons from Gibraltar?
I did remember to get the wireless license, didn't I?
Yes, it's in the kitchen dresser.
I had a rather close shave with the car the other day, but it was entirely the other fellow's fault.
Well, it must have done something.
No, it's probably something to do with running this place. Oh, I expect we've ignored some tin pot regulation of some ministry or other. You practically can't avoid it nowadays.
Oh, I wish we'd never started this place. We're going to be snowed up for days, and everyone is cross. And we shall run out of all our reserves of tins.
Cheer up, darling. Well, everything's going all right at the moment. Why, I've stoked up all the coke scuttles and brought in the wood and stoked the auger and done the hens. I'll go and do the boiler next and chop some kindling. You know, Molly, think of it. Must be something pretty serious to send a police sergeant trekking out in all this. Must be something really urgent.
Oh, there you are, Mr. Ralston. Do you know that the central heating in the library has gone practically stone cold?
Sorry, Mrs. Boyle. We're a bit short of coke, and I've
I
been
am
trying...
paying 7 guineas a week to stay here. 7 guineas, and I don't want to freeze.
I'll go and stoke it up.
Good. Oh, Mrs. Ralston, if you don't mind my saying so, that is a very peculiar young man you have staying here. His manners and his ties. And does he ever brush his hair?
He is an extremely brilliant young architect.
I beg your pardon?
Christopher Wren is an architect.
Oh, my dear young woman, I have naturally heard of Sir Christopher Wren. Of course he was an architect. He built St. Paul's. You young people nowadays think that no one is educated but yourselves.
I meant this Wren. His name is Christopher. His parents called him that because they hoped to be an architect, and he is. Or nearly one. So it turned out all right.
Well, sounds a fishy story to me. I should make some inquiries if I were you. What do you know of him?
Just as much as I know about you, Mrs. Boyle, which is that you're both paying us 7 guineas a week. That is all I really need to know, isn't it? And all that concerns me. It doesn't really matter to me whether I like my guest or whether I don't.
Well, my dear, you are young and inexperienced and should welcome advice from someone more knowledgeable than yourself. And what about this foreigner?
What about him?
Well, you weren't expecting him, were you?
To turn away a bona fide traveller is against the law, Mrs. Boyle. You should know that.
What do you mean by that? Oh, would you mind not smoking, please?
Weren't you a magistrate sitting on the bench, Mrs. Boyle?
What I meant was that this Parvasini, Chini, whatever he calls himself, it seems to me that
Beware, dear lady. Talk of the devil, and he is.
I didn't hear you come in.
I came in on tiptoe, like this. No one ever hears me if I do not want them to. Find it very amusing.
Indeed.
Now, there was a young
Well, I
lady.
must get on with my letters. I will see if it's a little bit warmer in the drawing room.
My charming hostess looks upset. What is it, dear lady?
Everything's rather difficult this morning because of the snow.
Yes. Snow makes things difficult, does it not? What else it makes them easy? Yes, very easy.
I don't know what you mean.
No. There is quite a lot you do not know. I think, for one thing, you do not know very much about running a guest house.
Dare say we don't, but we intend to make a go of it.
Bravo, bravo!
And I'm not such a very bad cook.
You are, without doubt, an enchanting cook. May I give you a word of warning, Mrs. Ralston? You and your husband must not be too trusting, you know. Have you, references with these guests of yours?
Is that usual? I thought people just came.
It is advisable to know a little something about the people who sleep under your roof. Take, for example, myself. I show up saying my car is overturned in a snowdrift. And what do you know of me? Nothing at all. I may be a thief, a robber, a fugitive from justice, a madman, even a murderer. Aha, you see? And perhaps you know just as little of your other guests as well.
Well, as far as Mrs. Boyle goes, I do.
Oh, it's far too cold in the drawing room to sit. I'll finish my letters in here. Excuse me.
Allow me to poke the fire for you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Ralston, is your husband about? I'm afraid the pipes of the downstairs cloakroom are frozen.
Oh, dear, what an awful day. First the police, then the
Police?
Police, did you say?
They rang up just now to say there's something of sergeant out here. But I don't think he'll ever get here.
Ready to coach more than Hearthstones. Isn't that crazy? Hello, is anything the matter?
I hear the police are on their way here. Why?
Oh, that's all right. No one will get through in this. Well, the drifts must be 5 feet deep, but the roads are all banked up. No one will get here today. Excuse me, Mr. Potavicini, may I put these down?
Giles!
Mr. Alston?
Yes?
Detective Sergeant Trotter, Berkshire Police. Can I take these skis off and stow them somewhere?
Go around that way to the front door. I'll meet you.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I suppose that's what we pay our police force for nowadays, to go about the countryside enjoying themselves at winter sports.
Why did you send for the police, Mrs. Ralston?
But I didn't.
Who was that man? Where did he come from? He passed the drawing room window on skis, all over snow and looking terribly hearty.
Well, you can believe it or not, but that man is a policeman. A policeman skiing.
This is Detective Sergeant Trotter.
Afternoon.
Oh, you can't be a sergeant. You're too young.
I'm not quite as young as I look, madam.
But terribly hearty.
Stow your skis away to the stairs.
Mrs. Ralston, may I use your telephone?
Of course, Major Metcalf.
He's very attractive, don't you think so? I always think the police are very attractive.
Oh, no brains. You can see that at a glance.
Hello? Hello? Mrs. Ralston, this telephone is dead, quite dead.
Oh, it's working about half an hour
The
ago.
line's gone with the way to the snow, I suppose.
So, we're quite cut off now. Quite cut off. That's funny, isn't it?
I don't see anything to laugh at.
No, indeed.
It's a private joke of my own. Shh! The sleuth is returning.
Mr. Alston, Mrs. Alston, now we can get to business.
Do you want to see us alone? If so, we can go into the drawing room.
Oh, it won't be necessary. It'll save time if everybody's present. Do you mind if I sit down?
Oh, please. Oh, do hurry up and tell us. What have we done?
Done? Oh, it's nothing of that kind, Mrs. Ralston. It's something quite different. It's more a matter of police protection, if you understand me.
Police protection?
Well, it relates to the death of Mrs. Lyne. Mrs. Maureen Lyne of 24 Culver Street, London West 2, was murdered yesterday, the 15th instant. You may have heard or read about the case.
Yes, I heard it on the wireless. The woman was strangled.
That's right, madam. Now, the first thing I want to know is if you were acquainted with this Miss Lyne.
Never heard of her.
Well, you may have known her under the name of Lyne. Lyne wasn't her real name. She had a police record. Her fingerprints were on file. We were able to identify her without difficulty. Her real name was Maureen Stanning. Her husband was a farmer, John Stanning, who resided at Longridge Farm, not very far from here.
Longridge Farm. Wasn't that where those
Yes,
children?
the Longridge Farm case.
3 children.
That's right, miss. The Corrigans. 2 boys and a girl brought before the court as in need of care and protection. A home was found for them with the Stannings at Longridge Farm. One of the children subsequently died as a result of criminal neglect and persistent ill treatment. The case made a bit of a sensation at the time.
It was horrible.
The Stannings were sentenced to terms of imprisonment. Mr. Stanning died in prison. Mrs. Stanning served her sentence and was duly released. And as I say, yesterday she was found strangled at 24 Culver Street.
Well, who did it?
Oh, I'm coming to that, madam. A notebook was picked up at the scene of the crime. In that notebook was written 2 addresses. One was 24 Culver Street, and the other was Monkswell Manor.
What?
Oh, yes, sir. That's why Superintendent Albin, on receiving this information from Scotland Yard, thought it imperative for me to come out and find out if there was any connection between this house, or anyone in this house, and the Longridge Farm case.
There's nothing, absolutely nothing. It must be a coincidence.
Well, Superintendent Albin doesn't think it's a coincidence. He'd have come himself, of course, but if there was any way possible, but under these weather conditions, and as I can ski, he sent me with instructions to get full particulars of everyone in this house, report back to him by phone, and take what measures I saw fit to ensure the safety of the household.
Safety? What danger does he think we're in? Oh, good Lord, he's not suggesting someone's going to be killed here.
Well, I didn't want to frighten any of the ladies, but frankly, yes, that is the idea.
But why?
Well, that's what I've got to find out from you.
But the whole thing's crazy.
Yes, sir, it's because it's crazy it's so dangerous.
Oh, nonsense.
I must say, it seems a bit far-fetched.
I think it's wonderful.
Is there something you're not telling us, Sergeant?
Yes, Mrs. Ralston. Below the two addresses was written 3 blind mice. And on the dead woman's body was a paper with "This is the first" written on it. And under the words a drawing of 3 little mice and a bar of music. Music was the tune of the nursery rhyme, 3 blind mice. You know how it goes. 3 blind mice, 3 blind mice.
See how they run. They all run after the farmer's wife who cut off their tail with a carving. Oh, it's horrible!
There were 3 children and 1 died.
Yes, sir, the youngest, a boy of 14.
What happened to the other 2?
Well, the girl was adopted by someone. We haven't been able to trace her whereabouts. The older boy would now be in 30 or so. Deserted from the army, hasn't been heard of since. According to the army psychologist, was definitely schizophrenic. A bit queer in the head, that's to say.
And they think that it was he who killed Mrs. Lyon.
Yes.
And that he's a homicidal maniac and he will turn up here and try to kill someone. But why?
Well, that's what I've got to find out from you. Now, as the superintendent sees it, there must be some connection. Now, you, sir, state you yourself have never had any connection with the Longridge Farm case.
No.
And the same goes for you, madam?
No. I mean, no connection.
And what about servants?
We haven't got any servants. That reminds me, Sergeant, would you mind if I went to the kitchen? I'll be there if you want.
Of course, Mrs. Ralston. Now, can I have all your names, please?
Oh, this is quite ridiculous. We are merely staying in a kind of a hotel. We only arrived last night. We have nothing to do with this place.
But you plan to come here in advance. You booked your rooms here, Ed.
Well, yes, everybody except Mr.
A part of a cheat. My car overturned in a snowdrift.
I see. What I'm getting at here is anybody who was following you might know very well you were staying here. There's just one thing I want to know. I want to know it quick. Which one of you is it that has some connection with this business at Longridge Farm? You're not being very sensible, you know. One of you is in danger, deadly danger, and I've got to know which one it is. All right. I'll ask you one by one. You first, sir, since you seem to have arrived here more or less by accident, Mr.
Paravicini. My dear Inspector, I know nothing, but nothing of what you've been talking about. I'm a stranger in this country. I know nothing of these local affairs of bygone years.
Mrs. Boyle, really, I don't see... Oh, I consider this to be an impertinence. Why should I have anything to do with this, well, this distressing business?
Miss,
Casewell. Leslie Casewell. I never heard of Longridge Farm, and I know nothing about it.
And you, sir?
Metcalf, Major. I read about it in the papers at the time. I was stationed in Edinburgh then. No personal knowledge.
And you?
Christopher Wren. I was a mere child at the time. I don't remember even hearing about it.
And that's all you have to say, any of you? Well, if one of you gets murdered, you'll have yourselves to blame. Now then, Mr. Roster, can I have a look around the house?
Certainly.
My dears, how melodramatic. He's very attractive, isn't he? I do admire the police. so stern and hobble. Quite a thrill, this whole business. 3 blind mice. How does the tune go?
Oh, really, Mr. Wren?
Don't you like it? But it's a signature tune. The signature of the murderer. Just fancy what a kick he must be getting out of it.
Oh, melodramatic rubbish. I don't believe a word of it.
But just wait, Miss Boyle. Shall I creep up behind you, feel my hands on your throat?
That'll do, Christopher. It's a poor joke anyway. In fact, it's not a joke at all.
Oh, but it is. That's just what it is. A madman's joke. That's just what makes it so deliciously macabre. If you could just see your faces.
Oh, a singularly ill-mannered and neurotic young man.
Where's Giles?
Taking a policeman on a conducted tour of the house.
Your friend the architect has been behaving in a most abnormal manner.
The young fellow seems nervy nowadays. Yes, he'll grow out of it.
Nerves. I have no patience with people who say they have nerves. I haven't any nerves.
No? Perhaps that's just as well for you, Mrs. Boyle.
Why do you say that?
I think you were actually one of the magistrates on the bench at the time. In fact, you were responsible for sending those 3 children to Longridge Farm.
Really, Major, why should I, how could I be held responsible? We had reports from the welfare. The farm people were very nice and seemed most anxious to have the children. Everything seemed to be quite satisfactory. Eggs, fresh milk, a healthy out-of-doors life.
Kicks, blows, starvation, and a thoroughly vicious couple.
Well, how was I to know? They were very civilly spoken.
Yes, I was right.
It was you. One tries to do one's civic duty, and all one gets is abuse.
Oh, you must forgive me. But indeed, I find this all most amusing. I enjoy myself greatly.
I never did like that man.
Where did he come from last night?
I don't know.
Looks a bit of a spid to me. Makes his face up too. Rouge and powder. Disgusting. Must be quite old too.
Yet he skips about as though we were quite young.
You'll be wanting more wood. I'll get it.
It's almost dark, yet it's only 4 in the afternoon. Turn the lights on. That's better.
Well, I'll just go into the library.
What a horrid little tune that is.
Don't you like it? Reminds you of your childhood, perhaps. An unhappy child.
I was very happy as a child.
You were lucky.
Weren't you happy?
No,
I'm sorry.
it's all right. It happened a long time ago. One gets over things.
I suppose so.
Or doesn't one? Damned hard to say.
They say that what happened when you're a child matters more than anything else.
They say. They say who says?
Who's a psychologist?
It's all a lot of hooey. I've got no use for psychologists or psychiatrists.
I've never really had much to do with it myself.
Good thing for you, you haven't. It's all a lot of humbug, the whole thing. Life's what you make of it. Go forward, don't look back.
One can't always help looking back.
Nonsense. It's a question of willpower.
Perhaps.
I know.
I expect you're right. But still, sometimes things happen to make you remember.
Don't give in. Turn your back on them.
Is that really the right way? I wonder. Perhaps it's all wrong. Perhaps one really ought to face them.
Depends on what you're talking about.
Sometimes I hardly know what I'm talking about.
Nothing from the past is going to affect me. Except in the way I want it to.
Everything's all right upstairs, sir. What's in here? Library?
Oh, do please close the door. This place is full of drunks.
Oh, I'm sorry, madam, but I can't get the lay of the land.
Oh, really?
Molly, what is this all about?
Well, that completes the tour. Nothing suspicious. Think I'll make my report now to Superintendent Oakbin.
Oh, but you can't telephone. The line's dead.
What? Since when?
Well, Major Metcalf tried it just after you arrived.
Oh, but it was all right earlier. Superintendent Oakbin got through all right.
Well, I suppose since then it's gone down the way to the snow.
I wonder. It may have been cut.
Cut? Well, who would cut it?
Mr. Ralston, so much do you know about the people staying in your guest house?
We really don't know very much about them at all. Mrs. Boyle wrote from a Bournemouth hotel. Major Metcalf from an address in, where was it?
Leamington.
Wren wrote from Hampstead, and the caseboy woman from a private hotel in Kensington. Paravicini, as we told you, turned up out of the blue last night. Still, I suppose they've all got ration books, that sort of thing.
I shall go into all that, of course, but there's not much reliance to be placed on that sort of evidence.
But even if this maniac is trying to get here and kill us all, or one of us, we're quite safe now because of the snow. No one can get here till it melts.
Unless he's here already.
Here already?
Why not, Mr. Ralston? All your guests arrived yesterday evening, several hours after the murder of Mrs. Stanning. Plenty of time to get here.
But except for Mr. Paravicini, they all booked beforehand.
Why not? These crimes were planned.
Crimes? There's only been one crime in Culver Street. Why are you so sure there'll be another here?
Well, that it will happen here, no. I hope to prevent that. That it will be attempted, yes.
I don't believe it. It's so fantastic.
It isn't fantastic, it's just facts.
Well, you've got a description of what this man looked like in London.
Medium height, indeterminate build, darkish overcoat, soft felt hat, spoke in a whisper. There are 3 darkish overcoats hanging on the wall now. One of them's yours, Mr. Ralston. There are 3 large felt hats.
Still can't believe it.
You see? Now it's this telephone wire that worries me. If it's been cut.
I must go and get on with the vegetables.
Is there an extension?
I beg your pardon, did you say something?
Yes, Mr. Ralston, I said, is there an extension?
Yes, up in the bedroom.
Go try it up there for me, will you, please?
Right.
Oh dear, how wasteful. Oh, now who's left this window open? Me.
There. Oh.
Well, I think I shall have some music. Oh no, too trickly. turn off the lights? I say, turn off the lights. Ow!
It's so dark. What a noise.
Now think, Mrs. Ralston. Try and think.
I can't think. My head's numb.
Mrs. Boyle had just been killed when you got to her. You came out of the kitchen. Are you sure you didn't see or hear anybody as you came along the hallway?
No, I don't think so. Just the radio blaring out in here. I couldn't think who turned it on so loud. I wouldn't be able to hear anything else with that, would I?
That was clearly the murderer's idea. Or murderess.
Well, how could I hear anything else with that?
Well, you might have done. If the killer had left the hall that way, he might have heard you coming from the kitchen and slipped up the stairs or into the dining room.
I'm not sure. I think I heard a door shut and creak just as I came out of the
Which door?
Well, I don't know.
Well, think, Mrs. Ralston. Think. Upstairs, downstairs, close at hand, left,
I
right.
don't know, I tell you. I'm not even sure I heard anything.
Can't you stop bullying her? Can't you see she's all in?
We're investigating a murder, Mr. Ralston. Up to now, nobody's taken this thing seriously. Mrs. Boyle didn't. She held out on me with information. You all held out on me. Well, Mrs. Boyle is dead. Unless we get to the bottom of this, and quickly, mind, there may be another death.
Another? Nonsense. Why?
Because there were 3 little blind mice.
Death for each of them? But there would have to be some connection. I mean another connection with the Longridge farm business.
Yes, there would have to be that.
But why another death here?
Because in the notebook we found there were only 2 addresses. Now at 24 Culver Street there was only one possible victim and she's dead. But here, at Monkswell Manor, it's a much wider field.
Nonsense. Surely it would be a most unlikely coincidence that there be 2 people brought here by chance, both of them with a share in the Longridge farm case.
Well, given certain circumstances, it wouldn't be such a coincidence. Think it out, Miss Casewell. Now, I want to get down quite clear where everybody was when Mrs. Boyle was killed. I've already got Mrs. Ralston's statement. You were in the kitchen preparing vegetables. You came out of the kitchen, along the passage, through the swing door, into the hall and in here. The radio was blaring, but the light was turned off and the hall was dark. You came in, you saw Mrs. Boyle, and you screamed.
Yes, I screamed, and at last people came.
Yes, as you say, people came. A lot of people came from different directions, all arriving more or less at once. Now, when I went out of that window to trace the telephone wire, you, Mr. Ralston, went upstairs to the room that you and Mrs. Ralston occupied to try the extension telephone. Just where were you when Mrs. Ralston screamed?
I was still up in the bedroom. The extension telephone was dead too. I looked out the window to see if there was any sign of the wire being cut there, but there wasn't. Just after I closed the window again, I heard Molly scream and I rushed out.
Well, those simple actions took you a rather long time, didn't they, Mr. Ralston?
I don't think so.
I should say you definitely took your time over them.
Well, I was thinking about something.
Very well. Now then, Mr. Wren, I'll have your account where you were.
I'd been in the kitchen, seeing if there was anything I could do to help Mrs. Ralston. I adore cooking. After that, I went upstairs to my bedroom.
Why?
It's quite a natural thing to want to go to one's bedroom, don't you think? I mean, one does want to be alone sometimes.
You went to your room because you wanted to be alone.
And I wanted to brush my hair.
You wanted to brush your hair.
Anyway, that's what I was.
And you heard Mrs. Ralston scream?
Yes.
And you came down?
Yes.
Curious that you and Mr. Ralston didn't meet on the stairs.
I came down by the back stairs. They're nearer my room.
Now, did you go to your room by the back stairs? You come through here?
I went up by the back stairs too.
I see. Mr. Pavlicini.
I told you. I was playing the piano in the drawing room. Who there, Inspector?
I'm not an inspector, just a sergeant, Mr. Pavlicini. Did anybody hear you playing the piano?
I do not expect so. I was playing very, very softly with one finger, so.
You were playing Three Blind Mice.
Is that true?
Yes, it's a very catchy little tune. It's, how should I say, a haunting little tune. Don't you all agree?
I think it's horrible.
And yet it runs in people's heads. Someone was whistling it too.
Whistling it where?
I am not sure. Perhaps in the front hall. Perhaps on the stairs. Perhaps even upstairs in the bedroom.
Who was whistling Three Blind Mice? Are you making this up, Mr. Paracini?
No, Inspector. I beg your pardon, Sergeant. I would not do a thing like that.
Well, go on. You were playing the piano.
With one finger, so. I hear the radio playing very loud. Someone was shouting on it. It offended my ears. After that, suddenly I hear Mrs. Ralston scream.
Mr. Ralston upstairs. Mr. Wren upstairs. Mr. Paracini in the drawing room. Miss Casewell.
I was writing letters in the library.
Did you hear what was going on in here?
No, I didn't hear anything until Mrs. Ralston screamed.
What did you do then?
I came in here.
At once?
I think so.
Now, you say you were writing letters in the library when you heard Mrs. Ralston scream.
Yes.
And you got up hurriedly from the writing table and came in here.
Yes.
And yet there doesn't seem to be any unfinished letters on the writing table.
I brought it with me.
Dearest Jessie, friend of yours or relation?
None of your damned business.
Perhaps not. You know, if I was writing a letter and I heard somebody screaming blue murder, don't believe I'd take the time to pick up my unfinished letter, fold it, put it in my handbag before I go and see what's the matter.
You wouldn't. How interesting.
Now then, Major Metcalf, you say you were in the cellars. Why?
Looking around, just looking around. I looked into that cupboard space under the stairs near the kitchen. I noticed another door and I opened it and saw a flight of steps. I was curious and I went down. Nice cellars you've got.
Glad you like them.
Oh, not at all. A crypt of an old monastery, I should say. Probably why this place is called Monkswell.
We're not involved in antiquarian research, Major Metcalf. We're investigating a murder. And Mrs. Ralston told us she heard a door shut with a faint creak. That particular door shuts with a creak. Now, could be, you know, that after murdering Mrs. Boyle, the killer heard Mrs. Ralston coming and slipped into the cupboard, pulling the door to after him.
A lot of things could be.
There would be fingerprints on the inside of the cupboard.
Well, mine are there, all right. But most criminals are careful to wear gloves, aren't they?
Well, that's usual, but all criminals slip up sooner or later.
Now I wonder, Sergeant, if that's really true.
Look here, are we wasting time?
Please, Mr. Ralston, I'm in charge of this investigation.
Oh, very well.
Mr. Ralston. Thank you. Now, we've got to establish opportunity as well as motive. And it seems to me that you all had the opportunity. Well, there are two sets of stairs. Anybody could go up by one and come down by the other. Anybody could go down to the cellars by the door near the kitchen and come up by a flight of steps that leads to a trap door to the foot of the stairs over there. Now, the vital fact was, every one of you was alone at the time the murder was committed.
But see here, Sergeant, you speak as though we're all under suspicion. That's absurd.
In a murder investigation, everyone is under suspicion.
But you know pretty well who killed that woman in Culver Street. Well, you think it's the eldest of those 3 children from the farm. A mentally abnormal man around 30. Well, damn it all. There's only one person who fits the bill.
It's not true. It's not true. You're all against me. Everyone's always been against me. You're gonna frame me for a murder. That's persecution. That's what it is. Persecution.
Steady, lad,
It's all
steady.
right, Chris. It's all right. Nobody's against you. Tell him it's all right.
We don't frame people.
Tell him you're not going to arrest him.
I'm not arresting anybody. To do that, I've got to have evidence. I haven't gotten any evidence yet.
I think you're crazy, Molly. And you too. There's only one person who fits the bill. And if only as a safety measure, he ought to be put under arrest. It's only fair to the rest of us.
Wait, Giles, wait. Sergeant Trotter, can I speak to you for a minute?
Of course, Mrs. Ralston. Will the rest of you wait in the dining room, please?
I'm staying.
No, you too, Giles, please.
I'm staying. I don't know what's come over you, Molly.
Please, Giles.
Mrs. Ralston. What is it you wanted to say to me?
Sudden Trotter, you think that this crazy killer must be the eldest of 3 boys at the farm, but you don't know that, do you?
We don't actually know a thing. All we've got so far is that the woman who joined with her husband in starving and ill-treating those children has been killed. The woman magistrate responsible for placing them there has been killed. And the wire that connects me with police headquarters has been cut.
But you don't even know that. It may have just been the snow.
No, Mrs. Ralston, it was deliberately cut. Round by the front door, I found the place.
See?
I'm just going by all probability. It all points one way. Childish mentality, mental instability, desertion from the army, and the psychiatrist's report.
Oh, I know. And that report all seems to point to Christopher. But I don't believe it is Christopher. There must be other possibilities.
Such as?
Hadn't those children any relations at all?
Well, the mother was a drunkard. She died shortly after the children were taken away from her.
Well, what about the father?
Army sergeant stationed abroad. Probably been discharged from the army by now if he's still alive.
You don't know where he is now?
Well, the tracing may take some time, but I can assure you this, Mrs. Ralston, that the police take every eventuality into account.
But you don't know where he is at this minute. And if the son is mentally unstable, the father may be unstable too.
It's possible.
If he came home after being a prisoner of the Japs, perhaps, and having suffered terribly, if he came home and found his wife dead, and that his children had been through some terrible experience and one of them had died through it, he might go off his head a bit and want revenge.
It's only surmise.
But it's possible.
Yes, Mrs. Ralston, it's a possibility.
So, the murderer may be middle-aged or even old. And when I said the police had rung up, Major Metcalf was frightfully upset. He really was. I saw his face.
Major Metcalf?
Middle-aged, a soldier. He seems quite nice and perfectly normal, but it mightn't show, might it?
No. Often it doesn't show at all.
So, it's not only Christopher who's a suspect. There's Major Metcalf as well.
Any other suggestions?
Well, Mr. Poveracini did take pause when I said the police had rung up.
Mr. Poveracini?
I know he seems very old and foreign and everything, but he might really be as old as he looks. He moves about like a much younger man, and he's definitely got makeup on his face. Miss Casewell noticed it too. He might, I know it sounds very melodramatic, but he might be disguised.
You're very anxious, aren't you, that it shouldn't be young Mr. Wren?
Seems so helpless somehow, and so unhappy.
Let me tell you, Mrs. Ralston, I've had all possibilities in mind ever since the beginning. There's the boy, Georgie, the father. There was someone else, too. There was a sister, you remember?
Oh, the sister?
Yes. It could have been a woman who killed Mrs. Lyme. Darkish overcoat, soft felt hat pulled down, muffler pulled up, spoke in a whisper. You know, it's the voice that gives away the sex. Yes. It could have been a woman.
Miss Casewell.
Perhaps. Oh, yes, Mrs. Ralston, it's a very wide field. There's yourself, for instance.
Me?
Yes, you're about the right age.
I really don't think
Well,
that's
Jeff, whatever you're going to tell me about yourself, I've no means of checking at the moment, remember? And then, of course, there's, your husband.
Giles? Oh, how ridiculous.
Well, he and Christopher Wren are of an age. Say your husband looks a bit older than his years and Christopher Wren looks a bit younger. Actual age is very hard to tell. Just, how much do you know about your husband?
How much do I know about Giles? Oh, don't be silly.
Well, you were married how long?
Just a year.
And you met him where?
At a dance in London, we went to a party.
Did you meet his people?
He hasn't any people, they're all dead.
They're all dead.
Oh, yes, but you're making it sound all wrong. His father was a barrister and his mother died when he was a baby.
You're only telling me what he told you.
Yes.
But you don't know it of your own knowledge.
It's outrageous that
You'd be surprised, Mrs. Ralston, by just how many cases like yours we get. Especially since the war. Mom's broken up, family's dead. Fella says he's been in the Air Force or just finished his army training. Parents killed, no relations. No backgrounds nowadays. Young people settle their own affairs, they meet and marry. His parents and relatives are used to make the arrangements before they agree to an engagement. Well, that's all done away with. Girl just marries a man. Well, sometimes she doesn't find out for a year or two that he's an absconding banker, an army deserter, something equally undesirable. Just, how long had you known your husband before you married him, Mrs. Ralston?
Just 3 weeks.
And you don't know anything about him?
That's not true. I know everything about him. I know exactly this. Oh, of yesterday when the murder took place.
Well, was he here?
No, he went cross country to a sale to get some wine net and fried chickens.
I'll bring it back with him.
It turned out to be the wrong kind.
Only 30 miles from London, aren't you? Oh, you got an ABC, eh? An hour by train, a little longer by car.
I tell you, Giles wasn't in London yesterday.
Just a minute, Mrs. Ralston. This your husband's coat?
Yes.
Evening news. Yesterday, sold on the streets about 3:30 in the afternoon.
I don't believe it.
Don't you? Don't you?
Molly,
Startled me.
where is he? Where has he gone?
Who?
The sergeant.
Oh, he went that way.
If only I could get away. Somehow. Some way. Is there somewhere I can hide in the house?
Hi.
Yes, from him.
Why?
But darling, they're all so frightfully against me. They're going to say I committed these murders. Particularly your husband.
Never mind him. Listen, Christopher. You can't go running away from things all your life.
Why do you say that?
It's true, isn't it?
Yes, it's quite true.
You've got to grow up sometime, Chris.
I wish I hadn't.
Your name really isn't Christopher Wren, is it?
No.
And you're not really training to be an architect.
No.
Well, why did you say...
Call myself Christopher Wren? It just amused me. And they used to laugh at me at school and call me Little Christopher Robin. Robin, Wren, association of ideas. It was hell being at school.
What's your real name?
We needn't go into that. I ran away whilst I was doing my army service. It was all so beastly. I hated it. Yes, I'm just like the unknown murderer. I told you, I'm the one the specification fitted. You see, my mother,
Yes, your mother.
everything would be all right if she hadn't died. She would have taken care of me and looked after me.
You can't go on being looked after all your life, Chris. Things happen to you. And you've got to bear them. You've got to go on just as usual.
One can't do that.
Yes, one can.
You mean you have?
Yes.
What was it? Something very bad?
Something I've never forgotten.
Was it to do with Giles?
No, it was long before Giles.
He must have been very young. Almost a child.
Yes, that's why it was so awful. It was horrible, horrible. I tried to put it out of my mind. I tried never to think about it.
So, you're running away too. Running away from things instead of facing them.
Yes, perhaps in a way I am. Considering I never saw you until yesterday, we seem to know each other rather well.
Yes, it's odd, isn't it?
I don't know. I suppose there's sort of a sympathy between us.
Anyway, you think I'll just stick it out?
Well, frankly, what else can you do?
I might pinch the sergeant's skis. I can ski quite well.
That would be frightfully stupid. That would be almost like admitting you're guilty.
Sergeant Trotter thinks I'm guilty.
No, he doesn't.
Oh.
At least, I don't know what he thinks. I hate him. I hate him. I hate him.
Ooh.
Sergeant Trotter, he puts things in your head. Things that aren't true. Things that can't possibly be true.
What is all this?
I don't believe it. I won't believe it.
What won't you believe? Come on, out with it.
You see that?
Yes.
What is it? Yesterday's evening paper, a London paper, and it was in Giles' overcoat pockets. But Giles wasn't in London yesterday.
Well, if he was here all
But
day.
he wasn't. He went cross country to get some chicken wire, but he couldn't find any.
Well, that's all right. Perhaps he did go up to London after all.
But why should he tell me he did? Why pretend he's been driving all around the countryside?
Perhaps with the news of the murder.
But he didn't know about the murder. Did he?
Good Lord, Molly. Surely you don't think. The sergeant doesn't think.
I don't know what the sergeant thinks. He can make you think things about people. You ask yourself questions and you begin to doubt. You feel there's someone you love and know might well be a stranger. That's what happens in a nightmare. You're somewhere in the middle of friends and then suddenly you look in their faces and they're not your friends any longer. Different people just pretending. Perhaps you can't trust anybody. Perhaps everybody's a stranger.
No! Not everyone is a stranger.
I seem to be interrupting something.
No, we were just talking. I must go and get on with the dinner. There's the potatoes and I must do the spinach.
I'll come and give you a hand.
Oh, no, you won't.
Giles!
Tete-a-tetes aren't very healthy things at present. You keep out of the kitchen and keep away from my wife.
But really, look
You
here.
keep away from my wife, Rin. She's not going to be your next victim.
So, that's what you think about me.
I've already said so, haven't I? There's a killer loose in this house, and it seems to me you fit the bill.
I'm not the only one to fit the bill.
I don't see who else does.
How blind you are. Or do you just pretend to be blind?
I tell you, I'm worried about
So
my
am
wife's
I.
sake.
I'm not going to leave you here alone with her.
What the hell are you?
Please go, Chris.
I'm not going.
Please go, Christopher. I mean it.
I shan't be far away.
Don't know what's come over you, Molly. You must be crazy. Perfectly willing to lock yourself up in the kitchen with a homicidal maniac.
He isn't.
Oh, well, you've only got to look at him to see he's barmy.
He isn't. He's just unhappy. I tell you, Giles, he isn't dangerous. I'd know if he was dangerous. And anyway, I can look after myself.
Oh, that's what Mrs. Boyle said.
Giles, don't.
See here, what is there between you and that wretched man?
What do you mean between us? I'm sorry for him, that's all.
Perhaps you've known him before. Perhaps you suggested to him to come here and you'd both pretend to meet for the first time. All cooked up between you, was it?
Ooh, have you gone out of your mind? How dare you suggest such things?
Rather odd, isn't it, that he should come and stay in an out-of-the-way place like this?
No odder than Mrs. Boyle and Major Metcalf and Miss Casewell should.
I read once in a paper where these homicidal cases were able to attract women, which is though it were true. How long has this been going on? Where did you first know him?
You're being absolutely ridiculous. I never set eyes on him until he arrived here yesterday.
That's what you say. Perhaps you've been running up to London to meet him on the sly.
You know perfectly well I haven't been up to London for weeks.
You haven't been up to London for weeks, is that so?
What on earth do you mean? It's quite true.
Is it? Then what's this? This is one of the gloves you were wearing yesterday. You dropped it. I picked it up this afternoon when I was speaking with Sergeant Trotter. You see what's inside it? A London bus ticket.
Oh, that. I can explain.
So, it seems that you didn't only go to the village yesterday, you went to London as well.
All right, I went to London.
Whilst I was safely away racing around the countryside.
Whilst you were racing round the countryside.
Come on now, admit it. You went to London.
All right, I went to London. So did you.
What?
So did you. You brought back an evening paper.
Where did you get hold of
It
that?
was in your overcoat pocket.
Oh, well, anyone could have put it there.
Did they know you were in London?
Oh, all right, yes, I was in London. But I didn't go there to meet a woman.
Didn't you? Are you sure you didn't?
You mean?
Go away, don't come near me.
What's the matter?
Don't you touch me.
Did you go to London yesterday to meet Christopher Wren?
Don't be a fool, of course I didn't.
Then why did you go?
I shan't tell you that. Perhaps now I've forgotten why I went.
Marty, what's coming over you all of a sudden? Well, you're different all of a sudden. I feel as though I don't know you anymore.
Perhaps you never did know me. We've been married how long? A year? But you don't know anything about me. What I thought or felt or suffered before you knew me.
Molly, you're crazy.
All right then, I'm crazy. Perhaps it's fun to be crazy.
Who the hell are you?
I certainly do hope you both are not saying a little more than you mean. One is so apt to in these lovers' quarrels.
Lovers quarrel. That's good.
Quite so, quite so. I know just how you feel. I have been through all this myself when I was a younger man. Jeunesse, as the poet says. Not been married long, I imagine.
That's no business of yours, Mr. Pallavicini.
No business at all. But I've just come in to say that the sergeant cannot find his keys. I'm afraid he is rather annoyed.
What's that?
He wants to know if you have, by any chance, moved them.
No, of course not.
Mr. Ralston, Mrs. Ralston, did either of you remove a pair of skis back from the cupboard where we put them?
No, certainly not.
Somebody's taken them.
What made you happen to look for them?
Well, the snow's still lying on. I need help here, reinforcements. I was going to ski over to the police station in Rockingham and report on the situation.
Now you can't. Dear, dear. Seems as if someone seen to it you certainly shan't do that. But there could be another reason, couldn't there?
Such as?
Someone may want to get away.
What did you mean when you said Christopher just now?
Nothing.
So, a young architect has hooked it, has he? Very, very impressed.
Is that so?
Oh, thank goodness you haven't gone after all.
Did you take my skis, Mr. Wren?
Your skis, Sergeant? No. Why should I?
Oh, Mrs. Ralston.
Oh, Mr. Ring is very fond of skiing. I thought he might take him to get a little exercise.
Exercise?
Now listen, you people, this is a serious matter. Somebody has removed my only means of communication with the outside world. I want everybody here at once.
I think Miss Casewell has gone upstairs.
I'll get her.
I left Major Metcalf in the drawing room. Major Metcalf! Hey, he's not there now.
I'll try and find him. Oh, there you are.
Hello, wanting me?
It's a question of my skis.
Skis?
Yes, did either of you two remove a pair of skis from the cupboard door into the kitchen?
Good Lord, no. Why should I?
And I didn't touch them.
Nevertheless, they're gone. Which way did you go to your room?
By the back stairs.
Then you actually passed the cupboard door.
If you say so. I've got no idea where your skis are.
And you were actually in that cupboard today?
Yes, I was.
At the time Mrs. Boyle was killed.
At the time Mrs. Boyle was killed, I'd gone down to the cellar.
Well, didn't you see them when you passed through?
I haven't the least idea.
Well, you must have noticed them when you went there.
I can't remember.
You must remember if you saw them there then!
No good shouting me, young fellow. I wasn't thinking about skis. I was interested in the cellars. Architecture of this place is very interesting. I opened another door and I went on down. So I can't tell you if the skis were there or not.
Yeah, but you must admit you had an excellent opportunity of taking them.
Yes, I'll grant you that. If I'd wanted to, that is.
Question is, where are they now?
Well, ought to be able to find them if we all turn to. Not a question of hunt the thimble, you know. Whacking great things, skis. Supposing we all turn to.
Not quite so fast, Major Metcalf. That may be, you know, what we are meant to do.
I don't get you.
I'm in a position now where I've got to place myself in the mind of a crazy, cunning brain. I've got to ask myself what he wants us to do, and what he himself is planning on doing next. I've got to keep just one step ahead of him, because if I don't, it's going to be another murder.
You still don't believe that?
Yes, Miss Casewell, I do. There were 3 blind mice, 2 mice cancelled out, 1 mouse still to be dealt with. There are 6 of you here listening to me. One of you is a killer. One of you is a killer. I don't know which one yet, but I shall. And another of you is the killer's next prospective victim. That's the person I'm speaking to. Mrs. Boyle held out on me. Mrs. Boyle is dead. You, whoever you are, holding out on me, well, don't. Because nobody who's killed twice is going to hesitate to kill a 3rd time. And as it is, I don't know which one of you it is that needs protection. Come now, anybody who's got anything, however slight it is, to reproach themselves for that bygone business, had better come out with it. All right, you won't. I'll get the killer. I've no doubt of that. But it may be too late for one of you. Let me tell you all something else. Killer's enjoying himself. Oh, yes, he's enjoying himself a good deal. All right, you can go.
Talking of chicken, dear lady, have you ever tried chicken livers served on toast that has been thickly smeared with au gratin? Served with a very thin rasher of bacon, just topped with a sauson of fresh mustard. I shall accompany you to the kitchen. We will see what we can concoct together. A charming occupation.
I'm helping my wife, Parvicini.
Your husband is afraid for you. Quite natural under the circumstances. Doesn't fancy your being alone with me. It is my sadistic tendencies he fears, not my dishonorable ones. Alas, What an inconvenience the husband always is. Leave it alone.
I'm sure that Giles doesn't think that...
He is very wise. Take no chances. Can I prove to you or to him or to our dogged sergeant that I am not the homicidal maniac? So difficult to prove a negative. And suppose that instead I am really gone.
Don't!
What's such a gay little tune, don't you think? She cut off their tails with a carving knife. Snick, snick, snick. Delish.
Now see here.
Just what a child would adore. Cruel little things, children. Some of them never grow up.
Stop frightening my wife at once.
Silly, I mean, you see, I found her. Her face is all purple. I can't forget it.
I know. It's difficult to forget things, isn't it? You really aren't the forgetting kind.
I must go. The dinner, the food, prepare the spinach, the potatoes all going to pieces. Please, Giles.
What did you say to upset her, sir?
Me, Sergeant. Just a little in the sergeant.
Rather depends on how you're looking at it, doesn't it? Just where were you bound for when you had this, accident?
Oh, I was on my way to see a friend.
In this neighborhood?
Not so very far from here.
Yes, well, what was the name and address of this, friend?
Not really, Sergeant. Does that matter now? I mean, it has nothing to do with this predicament.
Yes, well, we always like the fullest information. What'd you say the name of this friend was?
I didn't say.
No, you did you? It doesn't appear you're going to. Now, that's very interesting.
But there could be so many reasons. And them all. Discretion. He's jealous husband.
A bit old to be running around with the ladies of your time of life, aren't you, sir?
My dear Sergeant, I am not perhaps quite so old as I look.
It's just what I was thinking. What? You may not be as old as you, try to look. See, there's a lot of people going about trying to look younger than they are. Person goes about trying to look older, well, it does make one ask oneself why.
Having asked questions of so many people, you ask questions of yourself as well? Isn't that overdoing things?
Well, I might get answers from myself, because I don't get many from you.
Well, try again. That is, if you have any more questions to ask.
Yes, one or two. Just where were you coming from last night?
That is simple. London.
What address in London?
I always stay at the Ritz Hotel.
Very nice too, I'm sure. What was your permanent address?
I dislike permanency.
What was your business or profession?
I play the markets.
Stockbroker?
No, you misunderstand me.
Enjoying yourself, aren't you? Pretty sure of yourself too, but I shouldn't be too sure. You're mixed up in a murder case, and don't you forget it. Murder isn't just fun and games.
Not even this murder? Dear me, Sergeant, you certainly are serious. I always have thought policemen have no sense of humor. Is the Inquisition over for the moment?
For the moment? Yes.
Thank you so much. I should go and look for your skis in the drawing room, just in case someone has hidden them in the grand piano.
Just a minute, please.
Were you speaking to me?
Perhaps you'd come and sit down.
What do you want?
Well, you may have heard some of the questions I was asking Mr. Poppicini.
I heard them.
I'd like to get a little information from you.
Well, what do you want to know?
Full name, please.
Leslie Margaret Catherine Casewell.
Catherine?
I spell it with a K.
Quite so. Address?
Via Mariposa Pina di Mallorca.
That's in Italy?
It's an island. A Spanish island.
And, your address in England?
Care of Morgan's Bank, Leadenhall Street.
No other English address?
No.
And how long have you been in England?
A week.
And you've been staying since your arrival?
At the Londonbury Hotel, Knightsbridge.
What brought you to Monkswell Manor, Miss Casewell?
I wanted somewhere quiet in the country.
How long did you or do you propose to remain here?
Till I finished what I came here to do.
And what was that? And what was that?
What?
What was it you came here to do?
I'm sorry, I was thinking of something
You
else.
haven't answered my question.
I don't really see you know why I should. It's a matter that concerns me alone. It's strictly private affair.
All the same.
No, I don't think we'll argue
Would you
about
mind
this.
telling me your age?
Not in the least. It's on my passport. I'm 27.
27.
You were thinking I looked older. It's quite true.
Is there anyone in this country who could vouch for you?
Well, my bank can reassure you as to my financial position. I can also refer you to a solicitor. Very discreet man. I'm not in the position to offer you a social reference. I've lived most of my life abroad.
In Mallorca.
In Mallorca and other places.
Were you born abroad?
No, I left England when I was 13.
You know, Miss Casewell, I can't quite figure you out.
Does it matter?
I don't know. Just what are you doing here?
Seems to worry you.
It does worry me. Now, you say you left England when you were 13?
12, 13, thereabouts.
Was your name Casewell then?
It's my name now.
What was your name then? Come on, tell me!
It's a long time ago, I've forgotten.
Well, there are things one doesn't forget.
Possibly.
Unhappiness, despair.
I dare say.
What was your real name?
I told you, Leslie Margaret Catherine Casewell.
What the hell are you doing here?
Oh, God. Oh, God, I wish I'd never come.
I always thought the police weren't allowed to give people the third degree.
I've merely been interrogating Miss Casewell.
You seem to have upset her. What did you do?
No. No, it's nothing. It's just all this murder. It's horrible. It came over me suddenly. I'll go up to my room.
It's impossible. I can't believe it.
What can't you believe? 6 impossible things before breakfast. Like the Red Queen.
Yes, it's rather like that.
Dear me. You look as though you've seen a ghost.
I've seen something I ought to have seen before. Blind as a bat I've been. Well, I think now I may be able to get somewhere.
The police have a clue.
Yes, Mr. Wren, the police have a clue. I want everybody assembled in here. Do you know where they are?
Giles and Molly are in the kitchen. I've been helping Major Metcalf look through your skis. They looked in the most entertaining places, but all to no avail. I don't know where Parvicini is.
I'll get him. You get the others. Mr. Parvicini? Mr. Parvicini?
What is it, Sergeant? Little poor policeman has lost his keys and doesn't know where to find them. Leave them alone and they'll come home, dragging a murderer behind them.
What is all this?
Sit down, Major. Mrs. Ralston.
Must I come now? It's very inconvenient.
There are things that are more important than meals, Mrs. Ralston. Mrs. Boyle, for instance, won't want another meal.
That's a very tactless way of putting things, Sergeant.
I'm sorry, but I want cooperation and I intend to get it. Mr. Ralston, would you go up and ask Miss Casewell to come down? Tell her we'll only be for a few minutes.
Have your skis been found, Sergeant?
No, Mrs. Ralston. But I have a shrewd suspicion of who's taken them and why they were taken. I won't say more at the present moment.
Oh, please don't. I think explanation should be kept to the very end. An exciting last chapter, you know.
This isn't a game, sir.
Isn't it? Now there, I think you are wrong. I think it is a game. To someone.
So you think our murderer is enjoying himself? Maybe. Maybe.
What is happening?
Sit down, Miss Casewell. Mrs. Ralston. Now, would you all pay attention, please? You may remember that I took statements from you all right after Mrs. Boyle was murdered. Those statements related to your places at the time the murder was committed. These statements were as follows. Mrs. Ralston in the kitchen, Mr. Ralston upstairs, Mr. Wren upstairs, Mr. Parvicini in the drawing room, Mr. Casewell in the library, and Major Metcalf in the cellars.
Correct.
Those were the statements you made. I had no means of checking those statements. They may be true, they may not. To put it quite clearly, 5 of those statements are true. 1 is false. Which one? 5 of you are telling the truth. But 1 of you is lying. And I have a plan that may help me to discover the liar. And if I discover the one of you that lied to me, then I know who the murderer is.
Not necessarily. Someone could have lied for some other reason.
I rather doubt that.
But what's the idea? You just said you had no means of checking these statements.
No, but suppose everyone were to go through these actions a second time.
Ah, that old chestnut. A reconstruction of the crime.
That's a foreign idea.
Not a reconstruction of the crime, Mr. Porpicini. A reconstruction of the movements of apparently innocent persons.
And what do you expect to learn from that?
You'll forgive me, Major Metcalf, if I don't make that clear at the present moment.
You want a repeat performance?
Yes, Mr. Ralston, I do.
It's a trap.
What do you mean it's a trap?
It's a trap, I know it is.
I only want people to do exactly what they did before.
But I don't see. I simply can't see. What can you possibly hope to find out by just making people do the things they did before? I think it's just nonsense.
Oh, do you, Mr. Wren?
Well, you can count me out. I'm too busy in the kitchen.
I can't count anybody out. One might believe that you're all guilty by the looks of you. Why are you all so unwilling?
Of course, what you say goes, Sergeant. We'll all cooperate. Hey, Molly?
Very well.
Ren? Miss Casewell?
Yes.
Monteviccini?
Oh yes, I consent.
Metcalf?
Yes.
Are we all to do exactly what we did before?
The same actions will be performed, yes.
Ah, then I shall return to the piano in the drawing room, where once again I shall pick out the signature tune of the murderer.
Not quite so fast, Mr. Porpicini. Mrs. Ralston, do you play the piano?
Yes, I do.
And you know the tune of Three Blind Mice?
Don't we all know it?
And then you can pick it out with one finger just as Mr. Porpicini did? Good. Would you please go into the drawing room, sit at the piano, and be prepared to play when I give you the signal?
But Sergeant, I understood we were to each to repeat our former roles.
The same actions will be performed, not necessarily by the same people. Thank you, Mrs. Ralston.
I don't see the point.
There is a point. It's a means of checking up on the original statements. One statement in particular. Now, if you'll all pay attention, I will assign you to your new stations. Mr. Wren, would you please go into the kitchen and check on Mrs. Ralston's dinner? You're very fond of cooking, I believe. Mr. Porpicini, would you go up to Mr. Wren's room? By the back stairs, the most convenient way. Major Metcalf, would you please go up to Mr. Ralston's room and check on the extension telephone? Miss Casewell, would you go down to the cellars? Mr. Porpicini will show you the way. Unfortunately, I need someone to reproduce my own actions. I'm sorry to ask it of you, Mr. Ralston, but would you go out by the window and trace the wire around by the front door? Rather a chilly job, but I'm the toughest person here.
And what are you going to do?
I'm enacting the part of Mrs. Boyle.
Taking a bit of a risk, aren't you?
Now we all go to your stations and remain there until you hear me call you.
Harlequin.
No objection to my wearing a coat.
I should advise it, sir. Take my torch, it's behind the curtain. Mrs. Ralston, count 5 and begin to play. Mrs. Ralston. Mrs. Ralston.
Yes? What is it? You're looking very pleased with yourself. Have you got what you wanted?
Got exactly what I wanted.
You know who the murderer is?
Yes, I know.
Well, which one of them?
You ought to know, Mrs. Ralston.
I?
Yes. You've been extraordinarily foolish, you know, by holding out on me. You've been in serious danger more than once.
I don't know what you mean.
Oh, come now, Mrs. Ralston. We police aren't quite as dumb as you think. All along I've known you'd had knowledge, first-hand knowledge of the Longridge Farm affair. You knew Mrs. Boy was a magistrate concern. In fact, you knew all about it. Why didn't you speak up and say so?
I don't understand. I wanted to forget. Forget!
Your maiden name was Waring?
Yes.
Miss Waring. You taught school. In the school where those children went.
Yes.
Then it's true, isn't it, that Jimmy, the boy who died, managed to get a letter posted to you. In that letter he begged for help. Help from his kindly young teacher. You never answered that letter.
I couldn't. I never got it.
You just didn't bother.
That's not true. I was ill. I went down with pneumonia that very day. It was weeks afterwards that I found that letter with a lot of other letters. And by then, that poor child was dead. 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 Waiting for me to do something. Hoping. Gradually losing hope. Oh, it's haunted me ever since. If only I hadn't been ill. If only I'd known. Oh, it's monstrous that such things should happen.
Yes, it's monstrous, isn't it?
I thought the police didn't carry revolvers.
The police don't, Mrs. Ralston.
I'm not a policeman. You thought I was a policeman because I called from a call box. Said I was calling from police headquarters. Sergeant Trotter was on his way. You know who I am, Mrs. Ralston? George. Jimmy's brother Georgie. Don't scream, Mrs. Ralston, or I shall fire this revolver. I'd like to talk to you a little. I said I'd like to talk to you a little. Jimmy died. That nasty, cruel woman killed him. They put her in prison. Prison wasn't bad enough for her. I said I'd kill her one day. And I did too, in the fog. It was such fun. I hope Jimmy knows. I said I'd kill them all one day. That's what I said to myself. Because grown-ups can do whatever they like. I'm going to kill you in a minute.
You better not. You'll never get away safely, you know.
I can't find my skis. Somebody's taken them. But it doesn't matter. I really don't care whether I get away or not. I'm tired. It's all been such fun. Watching you all. Pretending to be a policeman.
The revolver will make a lot of noise.
Oh, it will, rather. Much better to do it the usual way and take you by the neck. The last little mouse in the trap.
Georgie! Georgie, do you know me? Do you remember the farm, Georgie? And the fat old pig? Do you remember the day the bull chased us across the fields? Do you remember the dogs, Georgie?
Dogs?
Yes. Yes, Spot and Klein.
Kathy.
Yes. Yes, Kathy. You remember me now, don't you?
It is you. What are you doing here?
I came to England to find you. I didn't recognize you till you twirled your hair the way you used. Yes. Yes, you always didn't. Georgie? Georgie, come with me. You're coming with me, Georgie.
Where are we going?
Oh, it's all right. It's all right. I'm taking you somewhere where they'll look after you. Where you won't do any more harm.
Ralston! Ralston!
Molly! Molly, are you all right? Darling, darling. Whoever would have dreamt it was Trotter?
It's mad. Quite mad.
Yes, but you were his
I
victim.
was mixed up in it all. He thought I could have saved that child, but it wasn't my fault.
But you should have told me.
I wanted to forget. Forget.
Well, everything's under control. He'll be unconscious soon with the sedative. His sister's looking after him. Poor fellow's as mad as a hatter, of course. I had my suspicions of him all along.
Did you? Didn't you believe he was a policeman?
Oh, I knew he wasn't a policeman. You see, Mrs. Ralston, I'm a policeman.
You?
Yes, when we saw that notebook with much more matter written on it, we knew it was vital to have someone on the spot. When it was put to him, Major Metcalf agreed to let me take his place. I couldn't understand him when Trotter turned up.
And Case was his sister.
Yes, she recognized him just before this lost business, and fortunately came to me with it, but... Well, it's beginning to thaw. Help should be here pretty soon. Oh, by the way, Mrs. Ralston, I'll remove those skis. I hid them on top of the four-poster.
And I thought it was Parmigiani.
Oh, I expect they'll examine that car of his rather carefully. I shouldn't be surprised if they found a few thousand Swiss watches in the spare wheel. Yes, I suspect that's his line of business. Nasty little bit of goods. Molly,
Charles, what were you doing in London yesterday?
Darling, I was buying you an anniversary present. We've been married just a year today.
Well, that's what I went to London for, and I didn't want you to know.
No.
They're cigars. I do hope you like them.
Darling, how sweet of you. They're splendid.
Will you smoke them?
Oh, I'll smoke them.
What's my present?
Yes, I forgot all about your present. It's a hat.
A hat? But I practically never wear one.
Oh, just for best.
Oh, it's lovely. Darling.
Put it on.
Later when my hair's done properly.
Oh, it is all right, isn't it? The girl in the shop said it was the last thing in hats.
What's that smell? What's that terrible smell?
Mrs. Boyle!
With the 36-year-old tradition established in London, we ask that you keep the secret in your all.
Well, we had some pretty good detectives tonight. The voting went 2 for Parmigiani, 3 for Molly, 8 for Christopher Wren, 9 for Mr. Ralston, 9 for Major Metcalf, 11 for Miss Casewell, and 31 for Trotter. Boy. Anyway, I'm mixing these all up. I'm going to ask this little girl here with the pink shirt if she would pick out one of these for us. Okay, let's see what we have here. Okay. Barry Engelstad.